as what I do, I'm an estimator and a project manager. So when I bid a project and I generate my cost for that project, I send a bid in, and then if lucky, I'm awarded that bid. Well, at that point, I have to manage that job to make sure it comes in at or below budget. That's my goal, is to come in below budget.
Sure. It's the ProfitDig Radio Show. We're good?
Yeah.
All right. Take two.
Take two.
It's like a bloopers reel, maybe.
Yeah.
You know? We don't have a ProfitDig bloopers reel.
We could probably put them together, though.
Does that mean all of our videos would be included in the bloopers reel?
Yeah. 99%.
Yeah. Well, that's how we're going to start this one anyway.
All right.
Jeff, it's cold outside.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's a cold January night here in Tennessee.
Sure enough.
I was just saying earlier, you like the cold.
I do.
See, I could go to sleep in October and wake up in April and be just fine.
Well,
In fact, I think bears already they figured that out.
I wouldn't mind seeing 6+ inches of snow on the ground right now.
All right, I do enjoy the snow.
Yeah.
But I don't want the rainy cold weather. So
Yeah.
anyway, enough about our weather here. Jeff, something I've been meaning to ask you and I think would be useful for our viewers.
All right.
What is it like in the day of a project manager?
Well, Jerry and I was talking earlier before we come to our meeting, and the mic turned over and he's going, hey, that's good for bloopers, isn't it?
It is good for the
Yeah.
bloopers.
But,
Jeff?
Y'all keep going. Over here, I'll engineer this a little bit.
keep it on the leg right there. Keep it on the leg.
I'm gonna pull this back.
Testing 1, 2.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Oh, a day in the life of a project manager, Jeff. Go!
Well, just like earlier today, Jerry and I were talking, and it's always bids coming in. You got to get bids out.
Right?
But, then you have other stuff come in that has to take priority.
Sure.
For instance, yesterday and today both, I had calls come in for jobs that both of them were budget prices, but they had to be returned by the end of the day. So I had to put my normal bids on hold to work on these particular 2 jobs to get them out, in a speedy fashion.
Yeah.
But, as what I do, I'm an estimator and a project manager. So when I bid a project and I generate my cost for that project, I send a bid in, and then if lucky, I'm awarded that bid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at that point, I have to manage that job to make sure it comes in at or below budget. That's my goal, is to come in below budget.
Sure.
At budget is good, that's what you bid a job for.
Sure.
But I always try to find ways, to cheapen up that job to make it come in under budget, because that's more profit for the guy I work for, and more profit for me in the end game.
Right.
But there's a lot of ways to do it. Every job is different. You have similar jobs, but every job is different. Some jobs you can put in a speedy amount of time. Some jobs, like in your downtown areas, they're long and drawn out. But basically, the only way you can do it is by production. So you can find ways here and there, to stuff the engineer or architect may have missed.
Sure.
You can do some stuff, do some value engineering. In a budget stage, you got to relay that back and forth with the contractor or the owner that you're working with. But when you're awarded a job, then if you can do some value engineering, there's a chance you can keep that money in house. So if you pick up extra 2, 3, 4%, then that's just that much more money you can possibly make in the long run. But that's just stuff you got to look for. You got to find ways to be able to speed up a job, to decrease your production or increase your production rather.
Right. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. Increase your production to lower your production cost, to
Yeah.
to decrease your production cost. Because you and I have been against each other, and my materials, your materials, they're going to be basically the same amount.
Sure.
I mean, they may be within 1 or 2% at the most.
Yeah.
But when I look at a project, I see a certain time frame that I know my guys and stuff can put it in,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore you do the same thing with your guys. Like, I think my guys can get this amount of footage per day, this amount of cubic yards per day. Whatever you may be into as far as your field of expertise, you see ways that you can speed up a job.
Right.
So I always go into a project when I'm bidding it as conservative as possible, and then once I'm awarded that project, then I try to get it as aggressive as possible.
I have a question. Talking about how you know, or you have a pretty good idea of how efficient a particular your crew is,
Right.
or what have you, in terms of estimating how long it's going to take or how much production you can get. Let's say 2 guys on a small crew that's been with you a long time, they take off and they start their own gig, and then you're bringing in some new guys. Let's say you don't know a lot about how efficient they might be. Does that impact or change the way you bid a job?
Well, not necessarily, because we've got multiple crews, and I try to take an average.
Sure, but
between the crews.
Okay.
But I cannot take into account a new crew coming in or old crew taken, because I never know what crew's going to be available
true.
for that project once I'm awarded.
Right.
So if we use a guideline, take an average of what your crews normally do, then at that point, it's going to be, if I send this crew out there and they're not as productive as the crew I hope for, I may not make as much money as I hope for. But if they are a mediocre crew and can get to a good production on a daily basis, then 9 times out of 10 you're going to come out all right. You're still going to be at budget, or even maybe a little below budget.
One thing that might slow a crew down, is that an operator? Would that be at the top of the list?
Well, it could be an operator. It could be a foreman.
Okay.
Your foreman. He's your leader on that project.
Right.
And so how he manipulates that job, or how he coordinates that job, can be either efficient or not efficient.
Sure.
So he's got to be thinking from boots on the ground to where he wants to be at the end of the day every day. And it's like my dad told me, when I leave a job every day, I need to be thinking about what I'm going to be doing the next day. I don't maybe making friends with the crew I'm with or anything else. Right down the road, worry about drinking a beer or whatever. I need to be focused on tomorrow, because that's my train of thought. At the end of the day, I've got to figure out what that job needs to look like when I leave, and where my starting point's going to be the next day when I get back
there. Yeah, and you want to be showing up the next day and cleaning up and moving
exactly.
stuff around. So
yeah,
that makes sense. Well, Jeff, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, man. Good talking.
Enjoy it as always.
Microchip is in the microphone.